Hey guys, this is part 2 of the study guide for Unit 5C test. We're at number 11. So on number 11, what you have to do is subtract x squared on both sides. We get 9x squared minus 3x minus 1 equals 0. So A is 9, B is negative 3, C is negative 1. Plug that into the formula. We have negative times negative 3 plus or minus the square root of negative 3 squared minus 4 times 9 times negative 1 all over 2 times 9. Okay, and then when you do this, a negative times a negative is a positive, so we have positive 3 plus or minus, let me scoot this down so you can see it, the square root of 45 over 18. Now, the square root of 45 will reduce to 3 square root 5. So let's go up here and let's continue. So we have x equals 3 plus or minus 3 square root 5 all over 18. And you have to remember that 18 goes with everything there. So if you can reduce, reduce. So we have 3 over 18 plus or minus 3 square root 5 over 18. This will reduce as 1 over 6 plus or minus 1 square root 5 over 6. And so we can say x equals 1 plus or minus the square root of 5 over 6. Call it done. Okay. The next page, I wanted you to cross out completing the square. And we're going to focus on 12 through 17. So on 12 through 17, we are going to solve by taking the square root. So you want to isolate whatever is squared. So on number 12, what you have to do is you have to isolate that b squared. So we're going to add 4 to both sides. We get b squared equals 64. When it's isolated, you can take the square root on both sides. So b is just positive or negative 8, and that's your answer. On number 13, we have to do a little bit more work to get x squared by itself. We have to subtract 9, both sides. We get 8x squared equals 712 when you subtract 9. And then divide by 8, x squared equals 89. Now 89 is not a perfect square and it does not reduce. So when we take the square root, it's just plus or minus the square root of 89. Now sometimes you might be asked, okay, so what is the decimal form? So if you hit second square root 89, and then you hit this little toggle button, these little arrows, it will give you a decimal if you are ever asked to find the decimal version. Okay, number 14. Again, we have to do a little bit of work to isolate this k squared. We're going to subtract 8 on both sides, so you get 7k squared. 316 minus 8 is 308, and then you have to divide both sides by 7. So we have k squared, and then 308 divided by 7 is 44. So take the square root, both sides, k equals plus or minus. We can break down square root 44 as 4 times 11, and you know the square root of 4 is just 2. So k equals plus or minus 2 square root 11. Okay, I'm not writing out both solutions because I'm trying to save time. On 15, you have to divide both sides by negative 1. There's a negative in front of the radical, so you have to get rid of it. So that's just k squared equals 64. The square root, you get k equals plus or minus 8. Okay, number 16, we are going to subtract 7 on both sides. We get x squared equals 81. Take the square root of both sides, and x equals plus or minus 9. Now you might have a question on your test that's got this type of question, and it says, well, how many solutions do you have? You have 2. You have a positive 9 and a negative 9. Okay, look at number 17. We are going to subtract 2 on both sides. So we have 10n squared equals 290. And then divide both sides by 10, and you get n squared equals 29. then take the square root of both sides. 29 is not a perfect square, and it will not simplify, so it's just plus or minus square root 29. Okay, I'm not going to do 18 or 19, but just know 18 is factorable. 19, use the quadratic formula. And I do have an answer key posted in the room and on Canvas should you need it. I just want to make sure I have time to do the back page. Okay, so let's look at the very back, 20 through 25. It says solve by factoring or by using the quadratic formula. So at number 20, this is going to be factorable. So you have to look at 96. What are two numbers that multiply to 96 and add to negative 20? Well, what are the numbers that multiply to 96? 1 times 96, 2 times 48, 3 times 32, and 4 times 24. Okay, and it's got to multiply to give you a negative, so one's got to be negative, one's got to be positive. If we have a negative 24 and a positive 4, that adds to give me this negative 20. Okay, so we have n plus 4 times n minus 24 equals 0. When you set those factors equal to 0, you get n equals negative 4, you get n equals a positive 24. Those are your two solutions. Okay, look at 21. 21 says n squared plus 16n plus 54 equals negative 6. Well, we got to get one side equal to 0. So we're going to add 6 on both sides. All right, so we have n squared plus 16n plus 60. This is actually factorable, so you want to come up with factors of 60. 1 and 60, 2 and 30, 3 and 20, 4 and 15, 5 times 12, and 6 times 10. Now, you got to come up with the ones that add to give you a positive 16. Well, that's going to be 6 and 10. So we have n plus 6 times n plus 10 equals 0. Set these factors equal to 0 and solve. You get n equals negative 6 and you get n equals negative 10. Those are your two solutions. Okay, look at 22. 22, this is not 1, so you want to see if there's a GCF. 2 fits into 2, 2r squared, 4r, and 84. So we're going to pull out a 2. When we do that, we are left with r squared minus 2r minus 42. Now, this is not factorable, but we can use the quadratic formula, and we can use the quadratic formula on just this part. Okay, we've made it easier by taking out the GCF. All right, so a is 1, b is negative 2, c is negative 42. So we have negative times negative 2 plus or minus the square root of negative 2 squared minus 4 times 1 times negative 42. Guys, this is just the formula. Negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4 times a times c all over 2 times a is 1. Now I'm going to see just that. What is that? So negative negative 2, that's a positive 2. Plus or minus, when we simplify this, we get 172, and that's all over 2 times 1, which is just 2. Okay, so the square root of 172 will reduce to 2 square root 43. So we have 2 plus or minus this, 2 square root 43 over 2. And your calculator will do this for you. We got second square root 172. It reduces to 2 square root 43. So just know when you have this, you have to reduce. Okay, so I'm going to try to work up here. Let's see if I have space. So 2 over 2 plus or minus 2 square root 43 over 2. Well, that reduces to 1 plus or minus 1 square root 43 because that reduces as well. So that's your final answer. Okay, number 23. We have to put this in standard form, so we are going to subtract 7 on both sides. So we have 6n squared minus 12n minus 18 equals 0. Make sure you do your math right. Negative 11 minus 7 is negative 18. See if there's a GCF. It looks like 6 can fit into all three of these terms. So 6, when we take that out, we're left with n squared. 12 divided by 6 is 2, so that's 2n. Negative 18 divided by 6 is negative 3. Now this becomes a problem we can factor. Let's see. So negative 3, we can have 1 and negative 3, or negative 1 and positive 3. Which combination adds to a negative 2? That one. So 6 on the outside, n plus 1 times n minus 3 equals 0. Set these two factors equal to 0. If you set 6 equal to 0, it just kind of goes away. So n equals negative 1 and n equals a positive 3. So those are your two solutions here. Okay. The last couple questions. So the last couple questions are asking about the discriminant. This discriminant, so if we've got the quadratic formula says x equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. The discriminant is just this part under the radical. If you get a positive number, you get two solutions. If you get a negative number, you get no solutions. If you get 0, you get one solution. Okay, so the discriminant for this, you have to rearrange. So you have to put this in standard form first. So it's 10m squared. Make sure you can see 10m squared minus 20m minus 80 equals 0. So when we do b squared minus 4ac, well, b is negative 20, so negative 20 squared minus 4 times a, which is 10, times c, which is negative 80. When you do that, sorry, 80, not 8. When you do that, you get 3,600. Is 3,600 greater than 0? Yes. So that means there will be two real solutions. Okay, and when you simplify this, when you take the square root of 3,600, you get 60. Okay, number 25. What is the discriminant of the equation? So a is 3, b is 8, c is 6. So b squared would be 8 squared minus 4 times 3 times 6. Okay, when you put that in your calculator, you get negative 8. What that means there are no real solutions. Okay, so what this bottom part is telling us tells you about the discriminant. The discriminant is just the part underneath the radical. It does not include the radical. It's just b squared minus 4ac. It tells the types of roots or solutions your equation has. If the discriminant is less than 0, meaning if it's negative, then there are no real roots. That means your quadratic does not cross this x-axis at all, so there's no real roots. If d is exactly 0, it's going to cross the x-axis in one spot, meaning there's one real root. And if d is greater than 0, meaning it's a positive number, it's going to cross the x-axis in two spots, giving you two distinct real roots. Okay, so that is your study guide. And remember, the answer keys are posted online and they're in the classroom at the front of the room. So if you have questions, consult those. Email me if you have questions. I hope this helps, and I will see you on Thursday.